Well, welcome to another great conversation here at Table Talk TV. We're going to be talking about AI in the church, AI in the Bible, the on-rise of artificial intelligence, changing translations, maybe rectifying better translations, integrated into the Logos software, and scholars using as a reference. Is it going to change the future of the Bible, the future of the church? We're going to talk a lot about AI in the church today, so stay tuned. Well.
What have we here?
Are we AI? Are you AI?
No, not again. It's a good question.
Well, it's something the church is going to have to deal with at some point. I have some questions that I'm going to ask later on in the episode for you guys to entertain, but hopefully you guys are ready to talk about AI in the church. There's a lot of things that's being integrated, and there's no way to run from it. So you guys can pretend all day, and you can go isolate into little corners if you want. But at some point, this whole digitalization is going to permeate in every facet of the church and the Bible as we know it. So hopefully you guys are ready for AI and Christianity.
I think Stephen had a song for us, a worship song.
I sought the Lord, and he heard, and he answered. I sought the Lord, and he heard, and he answered.
He's really answering.
I sought the Lord, and he heard, and he answered. That's why I trust him. That's why I trust him. I sought the Lord, and he heard, and he answered. I sought the Lord, and he heard, and he answered.
Do you like this? Is this your type of jam?
And he answered. That's why I trust him.
Is this just
That's
on
why
loop?
I trust him. I trust in God.
Thank you, Stephen, for the worship music.
Was that
I feel
AI? Is
like
that why
I'm-
you were showing it?
No, that was all genuine NI.
This is a really weird start.
Every church service usually starts out with, and not saying the word church, and not saying we're AI either.
Oh, with a worship song.
Yeah, so I figured it was only fitting.
Well, we could be the church if we're AI. Because at that point, what is the church? What is order? What is fundamentals? You know,
I remember in the Old Testament, Joshua had to fight AI.
That was a city.
You think that was prophecy?
Could be.
Oh, like a double parallel.
Double entendre?
Yeah, that's the word that I was looking for. Just couldn't find it.
It's a double quonon paradoxical system.
Well, I know a colleague had some information to share about this. Tell us what's on the on-rise. Tell us what do you know about AI and the church and the Bible.
Well, you guys have probably all heard of Logos or however you want to say it.
Mm-hmm.
They actually recently released an advertisement where they're going to start integrating AI for a subscription fee. I wish I had the video to show you, but they removed it from their YouTube channel. I'm subscribed to them. It just showed up about 3 weeks ago. And I remember talking to Host about it. And then we were going to talk about it today, but they removed that video.
Well, I can understand why, because everything's going to subscriptions, like Netflix, everybody's got some subscription plans. So it's not shocking to me that at some point the Bible, I mean, it's the
going
most
to be a subscription.
Yeah, it's the most sold book in the world. At some point, they're profiting at some point.
So what has me, like George, too curious is the fact that they removed it from their website. This video that was just there just a few weeks ago is gone now. And what's even more weird is people already started reacting to it. People have begun to talk, as always, as people do. They usually talk.
That's good.
So they're talking about this AI merging with Logos, however you want to say it. There's 3 videos. I'm not going to waste you guys' time. One's 25 minutes, another's 12 minutes, another 13. All these guys are big, Logos software reviewers. So they review the products that you buy on Logos Bible software. One's called Pro Preacher. One's called Pastor Tanner Bible Studies. And then another one is Benjamin Denny. So shout out to all those guys. They are reviewing the software as we're speaking right now.
Leave it to the church to come up with names like Pro Pastor. It's like, have you had difficulty studying this week?
It's Pro
Are
Preacher.
you at the end of time? Are you required to prepare a sermon, but you've been out golfing all week? Well, subscribe for Pro Preacher. We can generate a sermon for you on the fly. We use advancing leading artificial intelligence to come up with the most hermeneutically sound.
ProPreacher.com.
$6.99 a month.
Yeah, well, I don't make the rules or these names. I don't know why they make these names. Benjamin Denny is probably the guy's actual name, so
I like Denny's.
you can probably look him up. Well, all that just to say, I'm not making this up. The AI is merging with Logos, and for some reason they don't want us to know now. I looked everywhere all over their channel and their website to find that advertisement that I saw. Why did they take it off? America wants to know, Logos.
Well, it's probably, like I was saying earlier, it probably has backlash. And, there's already this negative connotation that the church is always trying to milk everything. And now you're just like, we already have to spend $60, $70, $80, $90, $100 a Bible, depending on what translation you buy. And now you're trying to tap in utilizing AI. Now you want us to, I'm already paying inflation to the roof, and now you want me to pay, $6.99, $7.99, maybe $39.99, $199 for this Bible software. I'm just trying to study my Bible, and you guys are milking it dry.
Well, I do enjoy the fact that AI is starting to get involved with the Bible. You guys have probably heard of, or maybe not, it's called ECM2. If you guys follow James White, he's actually talked about this a few times in his sermons a few years ago. And a few years ago, they just got done compiling the data for, I think, the Gospel of Mark, which is a pretty big book. Because what it does is it takes all the manuscripts. What humans can't do, Bible scholars cannot remember every word of every page of over 5,600 New Testament manuscripts. So they plug it into the system, and it does it for you. So this is something that we've never been able to do before in textual criticism. And ECM2 is doing that for us. So these scholars have been able to produce the Gospel of Mark so far. So if you want to know why it chose this word over that word, or this variant over that variant, the reason the Gospel of Mark is so big, the product of this software, is because you could actually see, it actually shows on the bottom of the page which manuscript this word came from, how many manuscripts, how many witnesses had this word, and so on and so on. So NASB, also known, aka NASB, 2020 version, has already started implementing, and it already implemented. If you have a NASB 2020, they have already integrated the ECM2 software into it. I would like to get your guys' opinions on all this AI Bible stuff. And again, AI in the church, and what could be the possible implications of these things.
Well, I think it's already integrated, like I was saying earlier. Mm-hmm. The average churchgoer, they probably don't know how much is being integrated, but it's being integrated in most large churches through their videos, through
what's in their Bibles. Like if you have an NASB 2020, it's in your Bible already. They've used this software to update the NASB.
Yeah, and just because, now that you said that, people are probably going to get rid of their NASB. And, maybe you have a good justification for it. Maybe AI can't be trusted, but that's something, we would have to talk about. And, what's difficult is that because a lot of people in the church specifically, they're not up to par with understanding how large language models and machine learning functions, it starts to sound like some kind of just opportunity. It's like Papacy Part 2, 2.0. This is just a mask. Like the AI can be like this new pope that can start altering things, changing things, and it can do whatever it wants. And because AI is so smart and because AI is so prolific, we just need to trust it. And at some point, what is the average churchgoer going to say? They're just going to have to say, well, this seems premeditated. It just seems like something that the church can hide behind. But is that true? Some of it can be true. Like the possibilities are true. But is it actually happening? I don't think so. But you can't, because you can't quantifiably say, yes, it's not happening. Because it is, because you have to know all the data and the training data. And because you can't know that. Like they can show you how they get to an answer, but they don't show you the training models behind how it gets there. And because they don't, of course, these training models could be what they're called weights. They could be weighted. And based on the weighting, which is determined by the programmers, alterations can be made.
Well, that's what's crazy about that video that I wanted to show you guys is they were saying that we have to really be careful with the trust that people are bestowing on us as Logos Bible software people, because that trust has been abused so many times by everyone else who is handling these language models. So, for example, if you go on to Logos and you say, what does Jonathan Edwards believe about the end times? It's going to give you an answer. And you're just going to believe it. Now, you can go and you can fact check it. It's going to give you the sources, and you're going to go to click on the sources because it's going to scan all throughout his literature. And you're going to have to read his literature, and you're just going to have to trust that that's what it's saying because you don't have time to read all of Jonathan Edwards' literature. So it can take things out of context. It could insert words, and you would never know because it's all digital. And maybe the actual manuscript of Jonathan Edwards that you have on your software doesn't even have this one word that changes everything. But because the AI needed it to say something, it put that word in there. And you wouldn't know unless you know what word to look for and all that. So it's very dangerous. And they could give you political opinions. They could do anything. So they know, the software people at Logos, they know how dangerous this is and how scary it would be. Because everybody's been burned by AI so many times just in our recent years.
That's only one layer. Like the other layer is, because what you're saying is true. It could, I'm sure everybody has seen Google and what they did with their AI models when they're doing photo generation. You type in George Washington and it'd make a black version of George Washington, or it just alters history. And so we can see AI has its own, based on its training, its own interpretation of whatever you're asking. So it gives you factual things, but there's a layer of interpretation. That's one step. But I think what's even more of a critical area to be more cautious of is literal alterations to current information. So let's just take your example. Most people know Edwards as a postmillennialist. So it'd probably say that. It's like you can't convince people that he was like a pre-trib dispensationalist or something like that. That'd just be crazy. And so it'd say that. But then it gives you this quote or it talks about his layers of how he sees sanctification, justification, and how he talks about it's all going to manifest. But it shows you these quotes. But and so then you say, well, I'm going to go fact check this. So then on the Logos software, you go and pull up the 2 volumes of Jonathan Edwards, and you start reading where he starts talking about his eschatology. But that itself has been changed. So not the interpretation, that's one layer, whatever spits out from AI. The deeper layer is if AI decides to retranslate actual material. And as they start getting rid of physical copies and everybody deals with the digital copies, who can verify if little sections or paragraphs or phrases or anything gets slightly altered? And if it's slow, you'll never know the difference, no matter how prolific you are in Edwardian literature.
Well, I think it's a little too soon right now for that because a lot of people do have hard copies still. Mm-hmm. So what Logos number 10 did is they actually allowed scholars to scan their book, their hard copy book, And then you could actually find a quote on Logos software. Even though you don't own the book on Logos, you have a hard copy, so you don't need to buy it again on Logos. So, but what they allowed you to do now is scan the barcode, and then it knows you have it on your bookshelf. So you could actually find a quote in there. The fact that they're doing that means that they know everybody's got hard copies still. So it's still too soon for them to start making it. All it takes is one slip up. If AI ever got caught, if Logos ever got caught changing Edwards' words around, or John Owen, or Herman Bavinck, or whoever, one of these elites, it'd be over for that software. Nobody would trust it ever again.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. It's subtle things like a word here, a word there. It wouldn't be large because time is all you need. And because these volumes are so big, like Edwards' volumes, there's only 2, but there's a lot. But like Owen has like 20 plus volumes. Nobody is, I don't care how good of an Owenian scholar, you ain't finding a word here and a word there, but he slowly changed things. In the next 10 years, things are, and you're not going to always go check, let me go pull out volume 7 to see if he said this. And you're just going to trust it because, you scanned the barcode and there's no reason in your mind that Logos would lie. You paid a lot of money already for this online version. And so it's just like trusting the pastor. The pastor says, this is what the Bible says, and this is their interpretation. You're not going around always double checking. You're like, he's the pastor. You ain't got no reason to lie. And it'd be the same thing. But because AI is not a human, it's just trained based on a human bias. Anything can be altered. And I'm not saying that's going to be the case, but you can't pretend that it's not possible. And when money is involved and political agendas are involved, anything's possible. Who knows what's going to happen to who's going to own Logos in the next 10 years? Who's going to be controlling Zondervan in the next 10 years? Is it going to be BlackRock or somebody? And if it is, who knows what's going to be the larger agenda?
When was the last time you fact-checked a pastor or something you read, Mr. Associate?
I actually do that very frequently, just because, like, when I first became a believer, I listened to, it was John Piper and Stephen Furtick, and then, obviously 2 different types of preachers and preaching styles and everything else, and that made me start to fact-check, because I'm like, okay, why is this completely different than what this pastor is saying and everything else? And so that kind of started me off at studying my own personal hermeneutics. I think the dangers with this whole AI stuff is, like, I've been to a couple churches where when it was first kind of introduced, they were just bragging about how they could be like, okay, write me a sermon about, like, I am a Roman Orthodox, whatever. Just give me, or a Russian Orthodox, write a sermon based off of my own denomination. So they did that quite a few times. They're like, I'm Mormon, I'm whatever, Baptist, Presbyterian, like, write this in the style of my own denomination. And the AI did that. And so sometimes I do a lot of fact checking now, because I'm just like, I don't know if this is actually the pastor that's speaking, or if he was, once again, just not really caring and kind of did whatever he wanted and said, okay, now I got to write this sermon. I'm just going to have AI do it. And so I think, I don't know, there's a weird balance between, like, actually being able to trust the pastor, but I think when the pastor kind of brags about, I used this and told it to write based off of the denomination, I think that's kind of an issue when the pastor is bragging about it, because I'm like, how do I know if you're just not doing that for this sermon? Like, how do I know if you're not? So I don't know. I do a lot of fact checking because there's a lot of
what if AI
stuff.
What if AI can preach better than a pastor?
I don't know, because I think we're all growing. Like, that's the point of sanctification. And so if you just utilize that to kind of just throw it out there, I feel like the pastor can start idolizing AI for what it can do because it's preaching better sermons than it.
The AI is growing too, and it's getting more sanctified.
Right. But AI, that's a completely different topic on, does AI have a soul? But
well, not a soul, but it's getting more sanctified.
Well, this brought back, see, I know you're not familiar with our little adventures in the past, but me and colleague, we used to have this thing called V-Time when we had virtual This was back before goggles were really popular. This was right when it first started. And you could just go to places and have conversations with people.
Like
in the
with Franco Macaluso.
Yeah, with virtual worlds. And they would just pop in and you could be sitting in front of a fire or somewhere else. But what we also discovered is that there's virtual churches.
Mm-hmm.
And
they still have those.
Do they?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's the next layer is, because what he says is interesting is AI can. Like if you look at how easy it is to create a avatar of yourself, an AI avatar, you could do it right now, 5 minutes. I can create a replication of myself and it will sound just like me, talk like me, but it'd be more prolific than me with no errors. And what if whatever sermon AI decides to propagate, it just creates an avatar of itself and then it preaches? Because there's a lot of churches, the mega churches, they have satellite churches. And what is that? It's like they have like 3 or 4 churches.
Right.
But there's one main.
And they watch the video.
Right. But they're all at a physical church. So it's still a physical church.
Right.
But they're watching the pastor that's at another church. But think about how AI would do that. So you have all these physical places. So it's still a church. There's still elders there. They still have all the structure of a normal church. They still have communion and all that stuff. But the pastor is actually an AI.
Yeah, but would the pastor want elder human beings to be in the church, or would he want elderly AI?
Well,
essentially,
at that point, yeah, you would have to have robots.
Exactly.
But assuming that it's not available, and assuming that it's trained to adapt itself with human functions, like human elders, human this, only thing that it's there to do is to make decisions like a CEO for the church and to be the preacher. And it's going to be always efficient. You want a Wednesday night study group, you want a Sunday school, it's never going to be late. It's never going to have an excuse. It's never going to miss. It's not golfing. It's going to be there and it's going to be good. And I think that in the future may be more exciting for people because you can tailor the type of church you want. Now, is that good? Is that what the church should accept, is a AI virtual pastor with these satellite? Because it's hard to say, I'm going to sit at home, watch a video, and this is church. There's no responsibility, there's no accountability, there's no nothing. Like anybody, you watch Christian TV. So you still going to church, there's still elders, there's still accountability, there's still all the functions of the ecclesiology of a church. The only difference is the guy who runs the whole thing, or is AI.
I'm still trying to figure out why we even have real worship leaders anymore. Like anybody can just throw a YouTube video of a worship service on at their church. I've asked pastors this, and they just say, it's tradition. That's all it is. We're just following tradition.
I think it's an opportunity for people to exercise worship. Like people enjoy singing and they feel like God likes to hear me regardless if I can sing good or not.
So you can still sing. You're in the congregation. You're singing. There's a lot of people in the congregation that have a good voice. Why do you need to be on the stage now? And that's what's weird. It's like, well, we just got to throw someone up on the stage. It brings more people in, gets more money, gets more tithes, more offering. So if people aren't even willing to budge with that, it makes me think that the answer for why we don't want to get pastors on a screen is because of tradition. Even if AI could sing better and pastor better. And let's talk about even the roles of a pastor. Let's say you have marriage counseling after the sermon this week or whatever. You have marriage counseling. You have addiction counseling that you have to do. You got to go visit people. AI can do all this stuff. People can sit down in an office with a TV, and that person on the TV, AI generated, can actually marriage counsel them, knowing all the wisdom of the earth, literally searching through millions of wisdom counseling literature, Christian and secular. Then they can compile it.
Isn't it starting to feel like that one stuff that Franco Macaluso? Because I was watching this past week, Meta had a conference, and they have these new glasses. Like they already have those Ray-Bans with cameras, but they have these new glasses that are going to try to create it's called augmented reality, where they're going to create holograms in real life. And so you're looking at real life, your glasses, but it adds these augmentations to your existing life. And at some point, yeah, if you had this counseling, like you're saying, they could put on these glasses and this holographic version of this pastor would show up. You wouldn't be able to tell the difference. It's going to look just like a real human, but it's augmented. And they're going to be able to have that. Now it's going to feel more real because, humans have certain reactions. Like right now, I'm talking with my hands. Like this actually brings a sense of humanness. So you will see this kind of reactions, and it's going to be correlated with the talk and conversation. It's going to feel more real. But yeah, it reminds people of those weird Franco Macaluso end times weird movies where people put on headsets and they end up talking to the Antichrist and stuff. I think that's a bad way to look at the world. People have a right to think whatever they want.
Well, you don't even need the goggles. They have now 3D where you can actually do a whole TED Talk on stage in 3D without even being there.
It's not as good though. Yes, there's things called hologauze where you can create that. But when you put the glasses on, it's as real as if you were looking at me. But all I'm trying to say is they could do that.
And you don't have to wear glasses. What I'm saying, you can, but I'm saying
the hologauze you can still tell. It's
a lot of these new concerts, like secular concerts with Drake and all them, they're not even on the stage. A lot of them are just performed by this hologauze, whatever it's called, but it looks really good. And that's why you see them do things like float and stuff with no wires because they're not even there at all. But people still go to these concerts. And it makes you wonder, if this is just a projection, he's not there, it probably is just an AI rendering. And yeah, they probably bank on the fact that there's not that much detail in it. It's not completely real, so you can't see all the little glitches and
it works better on stage because it's not high quality anyway. It's real life. Live is a little bit it's pixelated. It's even especially if you have a far away seat. But when you're like in an office and it's personal and you're trying to talk to your pastor, you don't want old school CRT TV technology. You want it to feel real. You don't want it to feel fake. But anyways, that's not my point. My point is that can happen. Mm-hmm. But is that supposed to be the future or iterations of the church?
Well, I think if you have AI as a pastor, why not just make it do all the other jobs for the church? Like, if you're going to just do that, might as well just get rid of all the human missionaries out there and put AI in their place. So,
or maybe you're jumping the gun too quick. Maybe this allows pastors to go do mission trips.
But is that what they're supposed to do? Or do they have a specific set role in their life to shepherd a group of people?
Well, if a pastor needs to spend more time with their family, which happens all the time,
right?
Especially considering the Stephen Lawson thing that recently happened. You could actually spend more time with your family for a month or maybe a few months, and you can still be teaching the church, an AI version of you, a face that they can trust. So they'll still be watching. They'll know it's AI, but they'll know. But this is a compilation of all of Stephen Lawson's material. So it's still Stephen Lawson, and we're listening to him preach another sermon while he's taking care of his family.
Wouldn't that just be like replaying a video, though?
Mm-hmm. No, because this would be new, fresh material.
See, now that's what's interesting. When that happens, what happens? Because I've seen this before in churches. What happens when they like the AI version better than the real pastor?
And he doesn't come back.
Well, and he can stay with his family, and then you don't have a scandal.
Yeah, but he can sit in the church and just watch the AI.
But you already know pastors are pastors because they're dominating people in some sense. They enjoy not just teaching, but they enjoy this function of leadership. And what happens when they get pushed out because the congregation wants to replace them with AI because it's a better preacher?
I don't know if they can still, because AI could only be on the stage. Let's say that's where its limits are. So the pastor can still come in and start, barking commands to his associates. But this is honestly, I think the pastor would be relieved. It's like, I don't even have to do the responsibility of preaching a sermon. I don't have to prepare. It's going to do all that for me. It's going to gather new material from the internet, and it's going to combine that with the material it has about me, and it's going to create a new sermon that I would do. It knows my patterns. It knows how I study. the books I pull from, and it's just going to do that. And then, so I don't have to do it. I can just come to church and still bark commands. You do this, you do this. You know, you sit in your little throne as a pastor and you're there.
You don't think it's, like human nature is to enable the things that we get the max rewards for the lowest amount of energy exerted. You don't think this is just a propagation to entitlement? You start learning, I can get AI to do this for me and I can still get my paycheck. Well, maybe I can get AI to do this and I can still get my paycheck. And
that's what I'm saying. It'll do all of his work and he'll still get the authority at the end.
Yeah, but at some point, if the congregation's smart, they'll start analyzing, like, what is he actually doing at all? Why do we even need him at all?
He's spending time with his family. He's going on mission trips.
Yeah, but we can get other people. Why do we need him? We can get other people to do that. What does he do?
It's the same question someone can charge against John Piper. It's like, why does the world look to him? Why is he so popular? It's like, because he's unique.
Well, it's not.
That's why.
Yeah, but at some point, it's like if AI can do this, it's not very unique. Now we have AI can do it, and we don't even need you anymore.
Well, yeah, we don't really need you anymore, but it's still taking your uniqueness. It's not normal. But
the church owns it.
The only reason people get as famous as someone like John Piper is because he's unique. He didn't get to where he's at because he's just like everyone else. So there's something about him that's unique, and everybody has noticed. And then they started to talk. And whenever people begin to talk, that's when things happen.
That's a whole nother layer. It's just like the AI strike with the actors. At some point, if this ever happens, who's going to own the AI rendering? Is it the church? Because technically the church owns everything. And because the pastor is an employee of the church. So the church would own their AI identity. And then it's been like, well, we can fire you and still use your AI rendering, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Unless in the contract he signed something that's
what I'm saying.
To make a contract that you can't use my AI rendering after I leave.
This is the future of what things are going to have to talk about. And I
don't think they would do it anyway.
Is this where the church is going to? Or is this even a conversation we're supposed to have in the church? Like, is this something we should even be considering at all?
We're considering right now.
Well, we are. But yeah, how many churches you think, not the mega churches, they're probably thinking all kinds of business efficacy. But like the majority of churches, just like the majority of businesses in the world are small businesses. So the majority of churches are normal sized churches, anywhere between 200 to let's say 500 people. They're even smaller than that. They're clearly not thinking about anything AI related. And they probably hear something like this, they would think that's absolutely asinine. Like, I don't know what they're talking about.
Honestly, I wouldn't say that letting your pastor be an AI pastor would be biblical. But I don't see anything wrong with churches letting the worship band and leader not be existent. So you just show on YouTube, so play something. You don't even have to show the video, just play the lyrics and the audio. You don't need to see people singing. You could just sing along. And yeah, if you have a beautiful voice, then sing louder in the congregation. Why not? Everybody should be singing anyway. You don't need to have a stage presence to be a singer. Not anymore. Now, back in the day, yes, you needed a worship leader because we didn't have this technology that we have now.
Yeah, but if people want that, that's fine. That's fine. Who cares? You're going to have to look at the stage anyway.
Nobody's going to do it.
No, what I'm saying is if people want to do either or, who cares? Because, yeah, it really doesn't matter. I don't know if worship in the church is really a biblical construct anyways. It's more of a Western construct. But either way, yeah, fine. Let's have AI worship.
Well,
but that's only going to lead to the question, just like anything. Once you do one thing, it's like a snowball effect to the next thing. Well, if we have AI worship, why can't we have AI in other places?
Because you can develop boundaries. So in the Old Testament, this was what the Levites were supposed to do. They were supposed to be the worship leaders, the ones that could sing. You had to be able to sing, and you had to be a Levite, and that was your role, was to be a worship leader. So you would lead the congregation of Israel into song, and you would have a bunch of these singers singing and leading the rest of Israel into worship. In the New Testament, we see the same things echoed throughout with Jesus singing with his disciples before he got died.
Yeah, but it's not really structured like that. It's very variable in the New Testament. But we're talking about something totally different. We're talking about watching videos. We're talking about not even real people involved. We're talking about AI.
Yeah, but this is before Jesus got before Jesus got raised like a serpent.
Mm-hmm.
he was singing with his disciples.
Yeah. Well, let's say that's in person. So if you take that in literalization, that's in person.
Yeah.
So there's no video. None of that is in context. It's like, what is that?
That is what it is.
Well, that's Bill Clinton. But yeah, that's a whole nother thing. And then the next thing is can we, so let's go back to the AI and this Bible and stuff. Should we trust AI translation? Should we trust Bible softwares? Should we trust scholars who are using AI as references? Can we trust them?
I mean, I think you still need to practice your own hermeneutics and your own studying. I don't think it hurt, because it's like, I look at like Calvin and Spurgeon and a lot into their notes on their sermon notes and everything else, but like I don't lean on just that. Like I lean on the scripture more than what they say, because like everyone can have a hiccup or anything else. And so I think just being able to rely on what the scripture says, like Proverbs 3:5-6 says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him and he will make your path straight. Like being able to lean on what he's saying and not what Charles Spurgeon or whoever else is saying. Like, yes, they make great points and they still bring you back to Christ, but not just fully being like, well, this is what AI said and I have to believe what that says, but being able to actually depend yourself on what scripture is saying, I think is needing to be focused a lot more, because I don't know, my generation, I'd noticed a lot of people, we just go to church and then we listen to what the pastor says and we can kind of replicate it, and that kind of goes into piety or whatever else. But you don't, like at the end of the day, a lot of people go home and just leave their Bibles on the shelves and everything else. So
what happens when the Bible itself is translated by AI? So yeah, okay, we focus on scripture, not listen to commentary, not listen to nothing. But now you know that the Bible translations are altered by AI. Now what do you do?
I don't know, because I still have physical copies. And so like once again, what colleague said was like, it knows that we have physical copies. And so I think it just depends on what happens to all the physical copies. Like, does AI alter the physical copies, or what's going to happen there? And if that happens, I'll just buy the older versions of the Bible before they go away. So,
and so here is the, this is just Google. If you type in NASB 2020 Bible sources, you get, they have the Old Testament, the Biblia Hebraica Sagicentia, Biblia Hebraica Quinta, Alex Iso. Then they have New Testament, NA 28, which is the Nestle Aland 28th edition, and the ECM2 Textual Criticism System. This right here is that software. Here's the ECM2 website. And we have Daniel Wallace. He's one of the leading textual critics of the Christian scriptures. So you can read what they do on this. This is their little introduction page here on their website. You can actually search scriptures, and this is actually the software right here. So you could actually go here and start looking stuff up, like how many times this word appears in the manuscripts and so on.
Host is just more techie with it.
Yeah, and that's fine. I really enjoyed textual criticism, so this is right up my alley. I may not know much about, computer programming, but I do know how scholars do textual criticism.
Yeah, that's the real question. It just comes down to, well, it's no different than now. Like, we can go into Google, we can type whatever we want. What's the difference between using Google and any program that a scholar would use? Or you can go into Logos and type in, and it's the same thing. You go into the search. Let's say you've downloaded, let's say you get their Platin subscription, which gives you all these commentaries, all this stuff. And then you just type into Logos something. What's it going to do? Same thing. It's just going to go through everything and pull up whatever you're asking. It's just a Google for Bible software. Mm-hmm. And at some point, it's not the material, you can't blame the program itself. It's just doing what it was programmed to do. The question that comes behind the scenes is, can you trust the people who are training these programs? And what I mean by training is the simple programming of what's behind the scene. are they asking these programs to go through the literature and remove things or not? Is it when you ask something, is it doing what Google Gemini did, which it's going to give you a black George Washington? So when you ask something about Spurgeon, is it going to just give you something kind of like paraphrase Spurgeon? Can you trust that? And I think that's what people are going to think. And it's not that it's true, but I think because I've seen that video too of what the Logos person was presenting, like somebody was asking, and he was saying the same thing. We don't want to lose the trust of the people because they know that he even used the word large language models are going to be utilized in the future. And we don't want that to jeopardize that trust, because a lot of people, they depend on the Bible to be accurate and true. And if they ever feel like that's jeopardized, you may jeopardize the whole scene. But I think that's just one layer, is the Bible and its translations and all that. I think the bigger layer is what happens as the function of the church itself, like in the church. Because it's, people barely read the Bible anyways. Mm-hmm. What it comes down to is, what does my pastor say? What does my lead shepherd say? Or what does my Sunday school teacher say? And the question is who's training them? Like, is this, because, think about AI teachers. What if you go to seminary and the professors now are AI professors? And that's a whole nother layer. Will they be more prolific, and will it be cheaper for seminaries to run AI teachers?
Well, I'm just thankful for the software because it's the ECM2 specifically. Logos is really good too, but this one is specifically for getting the words right, because it's going to show you the family tree, which there's only so much data you can recover for that. It's going to show you which manuscripts relate, and these manuscripts over here relate, and then these manuscripts over here relate, so you can tell that they all came from a different copy. So then you trace those copies, and you see that these copies, that all those stem from, as people were copying the text and then recopying and recopying over the years. Then you go one level down, all these copies, you see family lines with those too. These copies seem to relate with these copies over here and these. So you see, it's kind of like a family tree. You have mom and dad, and then they have 5 children, and then each of those 5 children have 5 more children. And so if you inverse it, you're trying to get back to the original manuscript.
That's kind of how it was, just how they translate today. It's the same way.
Yeah. The difference though, and this is why scholars like Bill Mounds, Philip Comfort, someone like James White, Daniel Wallace, these leading Greek scholars and many more are thankful for this as well, because they can't remember all this information. There's no way that they could remember every word of every page of over 5,600 manuscripts. And that's just for the New Testament. On this website, they even say that there's over 400,000 variants. So you have to not just remember every word, but the variants and which ones go to which page and which family tree and all this.
In the future, another thing that's on the on-rise is AI photo generation. What if slight alterations to these, because, manuscripts are getting older. What if slight little movement, little tittle, what they call iota, just a little iota, even changing an iota, can change definition. So what if a photo generation, which then is trained or is able to use by this software, creates an alteration? And then, like I said before, it could be 10 years, 20 years. Small little iotas can change anything.
Well, you can go to the museum still and look at these manuscripts.
But they're getting older and getting fragmented, and they have to be, and it's kind of like dinosaur bones, right? They got to put it away.
Yeah, and in a few thousand years, you'd probably have a problem. But if they've lasted 2,000 years, unpreserved, and that's just in the weather, they're probably going to last at least another 2,000 years. So, if you start seeing them be removed from the museums, that's when you want to start getting scared. Yeah, and I think then you can't fact check. Actually see it with your eyes.
Digitalization moves forward, I think there's going to be an emphasis to get rid of books. They're probably going to talk about carbon, ozone, something. Who knows what? If their agenda is to change things, is that. So the real question is I don't really, like we have like the Bible is the most sold book in the world. So it's like to get rid of the hard copies probably will be almost impossible. But the larger thing that's probably needs to be concerned when it comes to AI and the church is leadership, ecclesiology, the functions. Because I know in the future, especially with younger generations, they're going to want to do it on their phone. They're going to want to do virtual churches. They're not going to want to go in. They're not going to want accountability. They're not going to want any of that. And when there's these churches start popping up and there are all these virtual churches, how do we encourage them to not go down those roads, or should we?
I don't think you can stop it. That's why I'm always going to point to, the source of, and if you're a Mormon or whatever, I'd tell you to go to your source. If you're a Catholic, go to your source. And that way you can stay sane. Because if your leaders are evolving with the culture, then that's probably when you're in a bad place.
So that's what I was asking you guys. Would you guys attend a virtual church and become a member of a virtual church?
I don't think I would, just because I like the physical aspect. I think Hebrews talks about like, don't forget your gathering together. I think that's Hebrews 10:25 or something. But I just like the physical aspect, because then it's like, okay, now I can build a personal community where I'm at to grow. Like, I know a lot of people in my generation, they do use VR and stuff like that. And I have seen videos of the VR church, and sometimes I laugh at it because why in the heck is Spider-Man in the church, and why is Goku there and whatever else? And so I think it's interesting. I think it's a good way to get youth into the church, but I think actually making them go and find community is very important as well. So.
What about you? Would you become not attend? We all attended. The question is, would you be a member of a virtual church?
I don't think I could, no. And that's probably just my generation. I just don't think I could ever do that.
Yeah, it's tough. And I guess the deeper thing for most people, the biblical thing, but that's a whole nother conversation of what is a church and ecclesiology itself. But yeah, I think a lot of people in the church have to realize you're not running from it. It's coming one way or another, and really you're going to see the effects of it in your personal church, and especially through your pastors. So hopefully it was an insightful conversation. You guys have any last things to chime out on about AI and the church?
I don't think so.
I think it could be a powerful tool, but, it could be a powerful hammer too.
God's
That's
hammer.
a tool.
Depends what you mean by tool.
It could be a screwdriver, or it could be a rake.
Or a chisel.
Yeah. Shout out to Thistle. He says, chisel me daily.
Okay.
You want a bowl of chili?
Wrap it up.
Well, anyways, I appreciate you guys tuning in to Table Talk TV. Another great conversation today with AI and the church. But check us out on Spotify, Apple iTunes, or every Sunday here on YouTube for another episode. But until next time, this is the full panel. Well, Affiliate isn't here this week. I don't know if I think he might be missing out next week also, but you guys pray for him. I don't know if he's on a safe journey or not, but wherever he's at.
Dangerous journey.
Yeah, we're praying for him. But until next time, this is Table Talk TV. We're signing out.